Okay folks, buckle up. Today on the Mysteria Archive, we're delving into a dead man, a book and a secret. Because what starts out as a body on a beach becomes a story straight out of a spy novel. A man with no name, a code no one can crack, and a single secret message. Has it finally been solved? Stick around and let's find out. Dawn breaks over Somerton Beach, South Australia. The waves are calm, the air crisp, and a man sits propped against the sea wall, legs stretched out, shoes polished, suit neatly pressed. To anyone walking by, he looks like he's resting after a long night. But when someone finally checks, he's gone, completely lifeless. No ID, no wallet, no name. Every label on his clothes has been cut off, like someone wanted him to vanish cleanly from the record. Police search his pockets and find something strange. A small hidden slip of paper with 2 words printed in elegant Persian script, Tamam Shud. It means it is finished. And that's when things get weird. The man hadn't been robbed. There were no bruises, no wounds, no struggle. He looked peaceful, almost deliberate, like he'd decided this was the perfect spot to stop existing. But when investigators start digging, they find a trail of clues that feels more like a spy novel than real life. An unclaimed suitcase, a coded message, a mysterious woman, and a story that refuses to die. 75 years later, we still don't know who he was, or do we? The Man on the Beach. It starts just after dawn, December 1st, 1948. A couple walking along Somerton Beach spot a man slumped against the sea wall. He looks well dressed, tan shoes, freshly pressed trousers, a double-breasted jacket. He's sitting upright, his head tilted slightly, as if watching the sunrise, except he isn't. When police arrive, they quickly realise he's dead. No signs of violence, no vomit, no blood, not even a wrinkle out of place. The first officer reportedly said it looked like the man had simply decided to stop, which, honestly, sounds like the most unsettling way to describe a corpse ever. An investigation kicks off immediately, and that's when it gets strange. He's got no wallet, no hat, which was weird for the time, and no ID. Every single clothing label has been carefully cut out. Not torn, carefully removed, as if he'd been deliberately anonymized. Fingerprints? No match. Dental records? Nothing. His shoes are spotless, which makes no sense if he'd walked down from the nearby road through the sand. It's like he was placed there. And just when the case seems to hit a dead end, detectives find a tiny secret pocket sewn into his trousers. Inside is a slip of paper, torn neatly from a book. 2 words, Tamam Shud, it is finished. At this point, the police don't know whether they're dealing with a suicide, a spy, or the weirdest poetry club in history. But they know one thing. Whoever this man was, he wanted to disappear completely. And yet, in trying to erase himself, he left behind one of the most baffling puzzles in modern history. Because that tiny scrap of paper wasn't random. It came from one of the rarest books in the world, and somewhere out there, someone was missing a page. The clues and the code. After days of dead ends, investigators finally catch their first real break. A clue, hidden in the smallest possible place, that tiny scrap of paper, Tamam Shud, wasn't handwritten. It was torn from a printed book. And not just any book, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a 12th century collection of Persian poems about fate, love, and the meaning of life. You know, the kind of light reading you keep on your nightstand when you're contemplating the universe. Now, police launch a massive search for the source of the torn page, and against all odds, a local man walks into the station holding that exact book. He'd found it tossed on the back seat of his unlocked car the night before the body was discovered. Inside the back cover, written faintly in pencil, was something that sent investigators spiraling. 5 lines of random letters, no words, no pattern, just what looked like the alphabet having a nervous breakdown. It began WRGOABABD, then another line, then another. And to this day, no one's ever cracked it. Cryptographers tried everything, frequency analysis, substitution ciphers, even World War II code-breaking machines. Nothing. The code didn't match any known system. It was as if the man invented his own language and took the key with him. But the book held something else too, a local telephone number. It belonged to a woman, someone who lived less than a mile from where the body was found. And here's where the story takes its first cinematic turn. Because when the police knocked on her door, they weren't greeted by some random stranger. They were greeted by a woman who, according to one detective, looked like she'd just seen a ghost. She said she didn't know the man, but her reaction told a very different story. And from that moment on, the mystery stopped being about who he was and became about what she was hiding. The woman who knew something. Now, her name was Jessica Thompson, though at the time she went by Jestin. She was a nurse, quiet, private, and by all accounts, completely ordinary. But when detectives showed her the plaster cast of the Somerton Man's face, she nearly collapsed. Then she claimed she'd never seen him before in her life. Which, I mean, come on, that's either the worst poker face in history, or this case just took a left turn into the Twilight Zone. Now, police didn't buy it. Turns out Jessica owned a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, the exact same edition the scrap had been torn from. She'd once given it as a gift to a man named Alf Boxall, who she'd known during the war. So naturally, everyone assumed that Alf was the dead man on the beach, except he wasn't. Now, when police found Boxall alive and working at a Sydney bus depot, he casually pulled out his copy of the book, page intact. Inscription from Jessica still there. So, where did the Somerton Man's page come from? And why did Jessica react like she'd just seen her past catching up to her? She never gave clear answers. In fact, she seemed more annoyed by the attention than frightened. "I don't want to be involved," she later told reporters. But her behaviour left the public convinced she was at the heart of something much bigger. Secret romance, Cold War espionage, maybe even both. Adding fuel to the fire, years later, her own family revealed that Jessica spoke fluent Russian and had never explained where she'd learned it. At this point, the case had it all: a dead man in a suit, a code, a nurse with Cold War connections, and a trail that led exactly nowhere. It was like a real-life Hitchcock film, except the audience never got the third act. And as the years passed, one theory began to take hold, one that pulled the whole story out of mystery and straight into espionage. The spy theory and the science. By now, the police were knee-deep in dead ends, but something about this case reeked of espionage. Remember, this was 1948. The Cold War was kicking off. Australia had military testing sites nearby, and spies were practically the Kardashians of the intelligence world, everywhere, mysterious and always wearing good suits. So, naturally, when investigators learned about the code, the erased labels and the perfect tailoring, the idea took hold. Maybe the Somerton Man wasn't just anyone, maybe he was someone. Now, the autopsy didn't help. The pathologist noted his organs were strangely congested, his pupils dilated, classic signs of poisoning. But here's the kicker: no trace of poison was ever found. It was as if whatever killed him had vanished from his body without a trace. Now, I'm no doctor, but if someone dies mysteriously dressed like James Bond with a code in their pocket, I'm calling that suspiciously cinematic. Now, he wasn't drowning, wasn't injured, just switched off, like someone had hit end process on a human computer. And then there's the suitcase, found weeks later at Adelaide's train station. It contained clothes that matched his, same missing labels, same careful folding, and a few unusual items: a stenciling brush, a screwdriver, and a coat with a US tailoring style. Spy tools? Or just very thorough handyman? Depends on who you ask. As for motive, theories went wild. Soviet double agent, British informant, Australian intelligence gone wrong. The only thing missing was the car chase. But here's the twist. Decades later, in 2022, DNA testing finally put a name to the face: Carl Webb, an electrical engineer from Melbourne. Mystery solved? Not even close. Because if he wasn't a spy, then why the code? Why the secrecy? Why her? And that brings us back to the part of the story that refuses to die, the words that started it all. The message in the code. Tamam Shud, it is finished. It's the kind of phrase that feels final, poetic, almost deliberate. If this were fiction, you'd roll your eyes and say too on the nose, but this was real. Now, for years, investigators thought it meant suicide. Maybe he'd been heartbroken, rejected, or mentally unraveling. Maybe Jessica, the woman who swore she didn't know him, was the reason. The Rubaiyat is all about life's impermanence, the futility of regret. If you were going to leave one message behind, that one fits. But then there's the code. The 5 lines of letters scribbled inside that book have never been cracked. Some say it's a cipher, an agent's note to headquarters. Others think it's something simpler, initials of words, maybe even a personal diary written in shorthand only he understood. Personally, I think it's the universe's way of reminding us that even with all our technology, we still can't decode basic human mystery. Every few years, someone claims they've solved it, and every time the experts say nope. Whatever the meaning, it died with him. Still, there's a haunting symmetry in all of this. The book that inspired the note, the Rubaiyat, ends with the lines about fate and surrender. The moving finger writes and having writ moves on. Maybe that was his goodbye. Not to a lover, not to a country, but to the idea of being known at all. And maybe that's what makes this story so strange, because the Somerton Man might not have been a spy or a killer, or anyone extraordinary. He could have just been a man who wanted to leave quietly, but accidentally created one of the most enduring mysteries of the 20th century. Sometimes the code doesn't need to be cracked. Sometimes the message is the silence it leaves behind. The quietest goodbye. On that summer morning in 1948, a man's story ended where the sea meets the land. Quietly, deliberately, almost politely. He left no name, no family, no reason. Just a single message thrown into his pocket. Tamam Shud. It is finished. There's something haunting about that, isn't there? The idea that a person could erase themselves so completely that the world would spend 75 years trying to remember them. Maybe that's the real secret he carried, that vanishing is the ultimate mystery. People still debate who he was. A spy, a scorned lover, a man battling illness or heartbreak. Maybe he was all of those things, or maybe he was none of them. Maybe he was just tired. Not in a tragic way, but in that deep human way where you just want something to be over. And yet, the universe wouldn't let him go quietly. Instead, he became immortal. Not through fame or fortune, but through the mystery he left behind. A single scrap of poetry turned into legend. You've got to hand it to him. Most of us spend our lives trying to be remembered. He managed it by keeping every secret he ever had. And maybe that's why this story still grips us, because it sits at the edge of everything we think we understand about life and death, about identity, love, and the human need for closure. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to be felt. So, the next time you're walking by the ocean and you see the horizon blur into the sky, think of him, the man who spoke in code, who left no trace, and somehow, without saying a word, made sure the world would never stop asking who he was. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed our Monday night stripped down version. And if so, why not check this one out on screen now? The Yuba County 5, America's Dyatlov Pass Incident. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It will really help the channel and I'd really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments below of videos you would like to see next time. Okay, we're back on Friday night as usual. Okay friends, be safe, and until next time, stay curious.